He's real big on the Bakulu, okay? He does Bakulu initiations. That's where people learn to become priests or priestess of an ancestral tradition that's working with the ancestors. I haven't had that from him yet, but it's on my list, on my bucket list, so to speak. And it's very, very intriguing and very fascinating. So if you're interested in throwing bone, check those two people out, Michelle Jackson and Robert Lucas. Okay. What are some other ways of doing divination that another one that I utilize? My goodness. Okay. Another one that I use is called ceromancy. Now, ceromancy is reading the wax remains of burned candles. Now, some of you may or may not know, I offer candle services as one of the spiritual services that I offer besides doing readings. And basically, I light candles, fix them, dress them, and then light them and pray over them until they are self-extinguished. And sometimes the wax residue will leave patterns or images that can be divined on. Okay, so that's ceromancy. Now that's in the case of glass encased jar type candles. In other cases of ceromancy, where you have a freestanding wax candle that's not inside of a glass jar, you can, look at how the wax is dripping as it's melting while it's burning, and be able to pull information from just the shapes in the wax. And that's also very, very, fascinating and interesting. And so far, each time that I've done that, the reading has been spot on. Okay. But let me speak a little bit on the burning of jar or glass encased candles. All right. There are many different ways to interpret the way that the wax behaves or the candle behaves while it's burning. Now, I'm not going to get too far into it. There are books out there if you're interested in learning more. All I can say is this. When a candle burns, leaving black on the glass, that's usually an indication of two things. Number one is the more mundane answer, and that is you may have added too many things to your candle, like too much oil or too many herbs or too many other items that just burned and left smoky soot on the glass, okay? But if you know what you're doing and you didn't do that and the candle glass still sooted black, that can mean that your spirits took a hit for you, okay? That means that, there was some negativity around and the spirits took care of it on your behalf, okay? Now, sometimes a candle will burn black just at the top or halfway through or all the way down the length of the glass. Now, when it burns black all the way from the top to the bottom, that's usually an indication that something really bad is amiss and that you need help, all right? You need to go have somebody else read for you and assess your situation and do whatever it takes to fix your situation, okay? When the glass breaks, okay, that's usually a sign that your spirits took a very hard hit for you on your behalf, or there's something going on that you need help with fixing, okay? Sometimes candles will break if you're doing a working and the work isn't good, okay? For whatever reason, that's, your spirit's letting you know, like, hey, don't do this, put this away right now and clean it up and try again, all right? People with good spiritual discernment tend to be able to interpret the signs according to how they need to interpret them. So this isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all. I can only speak on my personal experience. So your mileage may vary. Your glass is breaking and things like that could be a totally different meaning for you based on your experience. Okay? So that's just basically how it goes with ceromancy. One very interesting situation I had with ceromancy, there was a situation where a group of people were said to be throwing curses at another group of people. and I was asked to step in and contribute aid in the situation. And these were people I consider friends, and I said, sure, no problem. And so I went and got a 9-inch jumbo reversible, and those candles are 2 colors, black on one end and a different color on the other. And I think in this case I had a black and red jumbo reversible. And so, I fixed the candle accordingly, and lit it, and whatever. And when it was done burning, the wax remains had the shapes of people and a specific number of people, and the way that they were positioned was very telling and very interesting with regard to the relationships these individuals had amongst each other. Now, I didn't really know that at first, but when I talked to the person and told them, I sent them a picture of it, and they were able to, basically tell me, who was who and what was what. And I just thought that was really fascinating, so that's ceromancy. I want to go back to the reading of cards, okay? There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet about how to, be more proficient at your cards, and, all the stuff that you're supposed to do with your cards, like leave your deck in the moonlight on a certain moon, bury your cards in the ground, bury them in the cemetery, hold them through some incense smoke and say certain kinds of prayers over them, and stick them under your pillow, and sleep with them under your pillow, and all these different kinds of rigmarole. And I don't necessarily subscribe to any of that. Now, what I do is when I have a bad reading, and when I say bad reading, I mean there was a lot of negativity in the reading, and usually when that's the case, I have a divination candle, and sometimes that candle will start behaving funny. The flame will start flickering all weird. In one case, the flame just, self-snuffed. It just, went out on its own, and I couldn't get that thing to relight to save my life. And it wasn't until the person in question had left my space, then I was able to relight the candle. All right. And that person just had a lot of bad energy surrounding them. So in cases like that, I will take my deck and do a little clearing ritual with it, and then use my pendulum to determine whether or not the energy has been reset, and everything is good to go, and I can use the deck again for another person. That's about as, elaborate as I get with my deck. After a few readings, I just like to take all the cards, put them all in order, right side up, and just, sit the deck in its little case, and, that's it. And that's, an easy way to reset the deck as well. I'm not into doing too much elaborate stuff, but, if that's how you like to roll, more power to you. Everybody's got their personal preferences on how to do things, and some people fancy the more elaborate, because they believe that the more steps and the more elaborate something is, the more powerful it is. But that's just never really been the case for me, okay? So, it's up to you. There is no right or wrong when it comes to how you do things, okay? So, getting back to other forms of divination, I heard that there are people who use playing dice for divination. I'm not 100% well-versed in that, but if you're familiar with that, hit me up and let me know what that's about. Okay, I just thought I'd put that out there for inclusion, okay? Now, when you go get a reading from someone who is initiated into an African traditional religion, I already spoke on the Dilagun, which is using 16 cowrie shells. There are other types of divination that initiated priests and priestesses utilize, okay? One that I'm familiar with is a reading done with the opele. It's a chain with these little flat oblong shaped pieces of, oh Lord, what is it? Oh, please forgive me. I was just looking at these items the other day, and I'm drawing a blank on what they're called. They look like pieces of, I want to say nut, or shell, or coconut shell. It's not the same as the obi, which I'll speak on in a moment. But they're pieces of these little discs on a chain, and prayers are said over it. It's held in the hand. It's kind of like, held, bounced up and down as these prayers are spoken over it. And then it's cast on the table, on a mat. And the way that these things fall, face up or face down, that pattern will determine a specific odu or meaning in Ifa, okay? And I haven't had one of those done in a long time, and I am itching to have one done because it's just so profound. It really, really is. And those readings can be life-changing. Okay, so if you know someone who is a Babalao, who is initiated into the Ifa tradition, go get your Ifa done. Okay, get an Ifa reading. It's also a way to find out who your ruling Orisha is, or Orishas, because some folks can have more than one. It's a great way to find that out. Okay, it's an amazing divination. It really is. So I highly recommend it if you've never had one done. Let's see how I'm doing with time. Okay, I'm at 41 minutes. And yeah, there are a few more systems of divination that I want to talk about, but I will do that in part 2. Now I'm going to listen back to this one, and hopefully I don't sound like I've been sucking on helium in this particular episode. And I'm hoping that I covered all the things that I mentioned in the previous one I uploaded. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say on this for now, and come back for divination part 2.